Welcome back, guys. Today we're counting down the top 10 horror games to play in 2025. Grab your headphones, dim the lights, and let's get straight into the nightmares. And hey, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. Ill is shaping up to be one of the most disturbing body horror projects in years, pushing for a level of grotesque realism that makes you recoil even before the action begins. The environments shown so far feel sick in a way that goes beyond rot. They look infected, as if the walls, floors, and air share the same contaminant that warps the human body into impossible shapes. Creatures twist and reform with movements that feel painfully biological, like tendons snapping and regrowing in real time. What makes Ill particularly fascinating is its focus on immersion. Reloading a weapon isn't a quick animation. It's a messy, desperate act that grounds you in the moment. Healing looks uncomfortable, like your character is barely keeping themselves together. The horror feels physical, almost tangible, pulling inspiration from Cronenberg-style body horror and expanding it into gameplay. If the finished game maintains this tone, it could redefine what visceral means in the horror genre. Outlast. The original Outlast is a relentless assault of tension, pushing you through Mount Massive Asylum with no weapons, no allies, and nowhere that feels truly safe. The asylum's design is brilliantly oppressive. Peeling paint, shattered lights, surgical rooms left in horrifying disarray, and hallways that twist in ways that make you lose track of where you've been. Your camcorder becomes your lifeline, but also your curse. Switching to night vision floods the world with a sickly glow where every shadow hides movement, and every reflection looks like a lurking threat. Enemies pursue you with terrifying persistence, checking hiding spots, breaking down doors, and dragging out chases that spike your adrenaline. What makes Outlast stand out is its commitment to powerlessness. You can't fight, you can only outsmart, outrun, or pray for a moment of darkness to hide you. It's raw, panicked, and unforgettable, capturing the primal fear of being hunted in a place designed for cruelty. The Callisto Protocol. The Callisto Protocol aims to immerse you in a grim, suffocating sci-fi nightmare that feels dirty, industrial, and oppressively intimate. Black Iron Prison is a place where every surface looks cold enough to hurt your skin, and every corridor feels like it was built with practicality, not comfort, in mind. The game excels at making you feel physically vulnerable. Close quarters combat is heavy, sweaty, and desperate. Enemies don't just run at you. They lunge, mutate, and crowd your space in ways that feel claustrophobic. The camera often pushes in tight, making every fight feel like a struggle happening inches from your face. The lighting design is another highlight. Emergency lights flashing in deep red, steam pouring from cracked pipes, sparks falling like dying stars. Environmental storytelling fills in the gaps, painting a picture of a facility that was breaking down long before the outbreak. The Callisto Protocol isn't just about fear. It's about dread, exhaustion, and the weight of being trapped somewhere the universe forgot. Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil Village blends multiple styles of horror into one sweeping, atmospheric experience that feels like a tour of nightmares. The village itself is a character, frozen in snow, riddled with folklore, and inhabited by people who seem resigned to living alongside monsters. The transition from one area to another is seamless yet dramatic. The towering elegance and predatory charm of Lady Dimitrescu's castle, the dollhouse horror of Beneviento's domain, the grotesque experiments hidden beneath Moreau's wetlands, and the industrial nightmare of Heisenberg's factory. Each region feels handcrafted with its own rhythm, visual vocabulary, and type of fear. The game's pacing is phenomenal, constantly changing gears between action, exploration, and psychological tension. Ethan's story takes on emotional weight as he pushes further into danger, transforming him from an everyman into someone hardened by trauma. The village's mysteries unravel slowly, offering layers of tragedy, superstition, and twisted science that merge into an unforgettable horror experience. Before we keep going, take a second to like the video and hit subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. PT. PT is legendary not because of its size, but because of how perfectly it weaponizes repetition. That single hallway becomes a psychological labyrinth where time, reality, and logic dissolve loop by loop. The changes are subtle at first, a door that closes on its own, a light that flickers a little too long, a portrait that shifts when you're not looking. These tiny details condition you to fear the hallway itself. The audio design is masterful. Distant crying, distorted radio broadcasts, and the creaking of wood that may or may not mean someone is standing behind you. And then there's Lisa, whose presence is so unpredictable that even moments of silence become stressful. PT doesn't rely on constant scares. Instead, it cultivates dread through anticipation, making you question every sound and every shadow. Its influence can be felt across the horror genre to this day, proving that sometimes the smallest spaces hold the biggest terrors. Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2 is a surreal, slow-burning descent into layered horror that feels equally like a detective thriller, a psychological breakdown, and an experimental film. Remedy builds an atmosphere that is almost hypnotic. Misty forests lit by neon signs, motel hallways that rearrange themselves, and transitions between live action and gameplay that are so seamless they pull you deeper into the dreamlike flow. Switching between Saga and Alan creates a dual narrative rhythm that constantly shifts your perspective. Saga brings structure, investigations, interviews, methodical reasoning, while Alan brings chaos, bending the world with fragments of imagination, fear, and unfinished stories. The game uses lighting like a narrative device, bright spots that feel safe for a moment, only to twist into something uncanny. Combat is tense and symbolic, with light functioning as both a weapon and a metaphor. The writing is rich with themes of creation, obsession, and the cost of storytelling, giving the horror emotional depth. It's the kind of game you finish and immediately want to talk about because it lingers, puzzling and unsettling in all the right ways. Resident Evil 4. The Resident Evil 4 remake revitalizes a classic by grounding it in a darker, more oppressive tone while keeping the charm, pacing, and action that made the original iconic. The rural village isn't just a backdrop. It feels alive, with muddy roads, creaking windmills, and villagers whispering in a dialect that makes the world feel culturally rooted and threatening. Every area has been redesigned with more verticality, more detail, and more places enemies can ambush you from. The remake's combat feels tighter and more physical, turning each encounter into a strategic dance, kicking down ladders, parrying blades, setting up crowd control, and deciding when to stand your ground versus sprinting for your life. The narrative has been expanded with new character moments, giving familiar faces more depth and motivations. Leon's dialogue is sharper without being cheesy, and his relationship with Ashley feels more grounded. The overall atmosphere blends action with genuine horror, making the world feel more dangerous and unpredictable. It's a respectful reinvention that honors the original while elevating it for a new generation. Still Wakes the Deep. Still Wakes the Deep brings horror to a setting rarely explored. An oil rig trapped far out in icy, unforgiving waters. The isolation is immediate and overwhelming. You're surrounded not by forests or cities, but by wind, steel, and a vast ocean that feels as alive as any monster. The rig groans constantly, metal stretching and bending as storms roll through. The moment things begin to go wrong, the atmosphere shifts from tense to suffocating. Narrow corridors flood, machinery malfunctions, and the entire structure becomes a maze of danger. What makes the horror unique is how grounded it feels. You're not a soldier, you're a worker trying to navigate a catastrophe with limited tools and even fewer safe routes. The supernatural elements creep in slowly, blending with the natural dangers of the environment until the rig feels like it's transforming from the inside out. It's a story-driven, emotionally charged kind of horror that lingers long after you're done. Dead Space. The Dead Space remake drops you back into one of the most iconic settings in horror gaming, the USG Ishimura, but everything feels sharper, colder, and somehow even lonelier than before. The ship hums with a sick, mechanical pulse, like it remembers what happened here and is trying to warn you. Every corridor looks familiar yet unsettling, reconstructed with tiny details that make the world feel lived in right up until it died. You don't just hear enemies. You anticipate them from the grinding of pipes, the clatter of tools falling somewhere behind you, the whisper of something moving in the ventilation shafts. Combat is surgical, forcing you to make every shot deliberate and every decision matter. The game doesn't rely on loud scares. It uses space, silence, and tension to push you deeper into Isaac's unraveling psyche. It's a return to form and a reminder of how terrifying isolation in space can truly be. Outlast 2. Outlast 2 throws you into a desert nightmare where religion, paranoia, and trauma collide in ways that feel too real for comfort. You're surrounded by sprawling farmland under a moonlit sky that feels endlessly empty, yet somehow still suffocating. The cultists you encounter aren't cartoonish. They're desperate, broken, and convinced they're fulfilling divine purpose. What makes the game hit harder is the sense of disorientation. You're constantly pulled between two horrors, the cult's fanaticism and Blake's own memories clawing their way into reality. Running through cornfields with only your camera as a lifeline creates some of the most nerve-wracking chases in horror gaming. Outlast 2 doesn't just try to scare you. It tries to weigh you down, mentally and emotionally, until you're not sure what's hallucination and what's truth. That's our look at the top horror games you should be playing in 2025. Let me know which one you're diving into next. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.